The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Wednesday. You know I love Wednesdays because on Wednesdays we welcome Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. She answers questions during a segment we call Ask Dr. Doreen. And then a little bit later we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be here with me, and we have a very special guest during that hour, and I'll tell you more about that a little bit later. But right now, I want to remind you that this entire show is meant to be interactive. We want you to participate with us. Ask questions, give suggestions, anything that you want to talk about. It's fair game here. Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us. I'm going to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there are so many things that you can do there, including check out our blog. But you'll see a computer screen, and on the computer screen, there's a triangle. Click on the triangle and you can be watching the most recently recorded live show or the live show. And we hope that you'll participate with us, whether you're watching a recorded show or the live show. There is a white box next to the computer screen. If you put your cursor there and start typing and hit enter, it will appear here on our screen. There is no login, there's no cost. In fact, we don't know who you are. You're completely anonymous. How lovely is that? The bad news is, though, that if there's something you want us to get back to you about, we won't have a way of getting back to you unless you include your email. We will keep that private and only use it to contact you with the things that you've asked us to contact you with. So I hope that you will participate, because this is a wonderful opportunity to get some information from a true expert in the field of autism. So let's start. Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We welcome Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh to the show again. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We were off last week. All of us were away in different places, but so thrilled to be back here with you to have you answer questions. I missed you last week.
That's so nice.
This is my opportunity to learn and to ask you questions and to hear what you have to say. So we so appreciate it. And a lot of people missed you too. We had a lot of questions that were written in while you were gone.
Get through them. I was happily resting on a beach in Mexico. So
how nice for you.
I needed it.
You know, and I appreciate that you took the time to do that.
Thank you.
Because I know the few times that I take some time off and be away from my child, I come back a better parent.
That's so true.
And I feel like we are all your children.
No, well, thank you. That's nice. But I was actually, you know, it's funny. I find myself saying that I was resting, and what I was actually doing was reading book chapters, because this is 28th, day after tomorrow is our deadline for submitting our book on the card model, and so I had to review a lot of chapters, which is what I'm doing also the rest of today.
So you were relaxing in a really wonderful place, but working. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's all fun, right? It's exciting when you've taken the written material, and we're editing it, Jonathan and I and Adele. And we basically had a lot of material, and it's been edited several times now. And when you read it now, it's so smooth, you know, and that's very rewarding. Yeah.
I can't wait to hold this book in my hands, and I can't wait to read it.
Well, thank you. It'll be coming out in 6 months.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, we ask you to come every week, and it's a wonderful opportunity for our viewers to ask you questions in almost real time. Sometimes there's a slight lag. But we do want to remind everybody at the start that there's no possibility, no no one on this show can give child-specific advice. You are a true expert in the field of autism and a visionary in the field of autism, but still this format doesn't allow you to get enough information to give child-specific advice.
Yes, absolutely. We want to caution our viewers that we will do our best, but, you know, please always, when there's any doubts, check with a professional, and that's more important guidance, because we really don't have the opportunity to see the kids, get to know them, see their history and background, and so we're giving very general advice here.
But having said that, there are a lot of things that we can talk about that really help you to know where to go next.
We hope so.
And that's really important. Well, that's what they write in and tell us. So I want to start today with a really interesting question. How do I we were talking yesterday on the show about redirection, and somebody wrote in and said, how do I respond or redirect when my 30-year-old brother with autism asks me the same question over and over and over?
Right. Oh, there's a lot of different things you could do here. I guess the first thing you want to identify, as usual, is why is he doing that? What's the function? That really will help you identify what to do. The assumption is that he's doing this to interact. That's my assumption. I'm not sure. I generally think that sometimes our kids, the adults that we work with, will ask something repeatedly because it's a form of interaction for them, and I think that's all. It is sort of attention seeking, and but I'm not sure if that's the case here. You know, and then whether or not you want to attend to it, obviously it sounds like it's really annoying you or getting to the point where you can't keep responding to it over and over. So the answer to that is you ignore it. Now, that is extinction, and with extinction, when you ignore it, it will increase before it goes away. And the reason for that is that from the individual's perspective, who's repeating the sentences or asking the same questions, they're wondering why you're not responding. And so they will keep asking again and again and again, and before they realize there's no answer coming. Now, having said that, I don't know the level of interaction. I don't know your brother's functioning level. A lot of times I hesitate to do that because I don't want to cut someone off from any form of social communication. It just depends on how much other social communication there is. So preferred method might be, depending again on this individual's level of understanding, a preferred method might be to start to really shape up the behavior that you ask once. Now, that would be relatively easy to do if you have the ability to show a visual cue. So, for instance, let's say your brother asks a question, and you would just very simply perhaps write out the answer or say the answer one time and just hold your finger up, which means one time I'm going to say the answer, and then after that not respond anymore. This will take a little bit longer than pure extinction, but I think your brother will probably catch on depending on, again, his level of understanding. That's one way to do it. Visual cues in those types of scenarios help. And really, there's a lot of other things you could do. It just depends on the type of, the level of functioning. So, like, sometimes our kids would ask questions out of context, or they would have repetitive verbalizations or so on, and we would then automatically engage them in other conversations so that the other conversation would replace this behavior, and we would make sure to engage them in other conversation outside of the schedule of this behavior. But I can't answer that. I can't guide you because I don't really know the level of functioning. I don't know the length of sentences. Does he ask a variety of different sentences? Or questions? What do they have to do with? Perhaps it's on a particular subject. Perhaps you can change the subject. So it's sort of a difficult one to answer. Yeah. But, you know, if you talk to a behavior analyst on this one, they should be able to give you a lot of different types of feedback on this, because generally it is thought to be more attention-seeking behavior, and there's a lot of different things you can do to eliminate the specific behavior of repeating, but not eliminate the behavior of asking questions appropriately.
Okay. I'm just thinking about, with this is something that Jem has done periodically. He'll go through a period of time where, and it might just happen an isolated event and then not happen again for weeks, but he'll ask me the same question again. And one of the things that I started to notice with some of the questions that were being asked of his team when he was younger was because they would always say, well, when is it happening? What's the question? What was happening right before? Those kinds of things that you guys
to
ask.
Identify the function.
Right. And what I started to piece together for Jem was that he was asking something like, can I have dinner? Mm-hmm. And I would say, we'd be in the car driving to go home. And obviously I can't cook dinner right here in the car, right? To me, that's, that makes total sense. And I would say to him, we're going to be home in a little while and then I'll start dinner and you can have dinner in like a half an hour. And so maybe, 20 seconds would go by and he'd say, can I have dinner? Mm-hmm. And what I started to realize with all the things that he would do was that there was a level of anxiety mm-hmm. for him, that mm-hmm. he needed something mm-hmm. and he wanted it right then. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't getting all the context of, I'm driving the car, I can't do that,
I like that. That's amazing. That's awesome.
That he had a need and he didn't have other words to say to me, no, but I'm really hungry right now.
Right. And, so
and his state hadn't changed.
Right.
So he's going to keep asking the question.
Right. And there's two really important aspects to what you just described. And let's talk about this because it might also help the viewer who wrote in. So one aspect of it is, and I find this to be true in general for the vast majority of our kids and adults, mm-hmm. the concept of time. So there is no, and this is true of all typical kids as well, time doesn't have meaning when you're younger or when your understanding is limited. It doesn't have any meaning. So when you say something like, we'll have it in a little while, or once we get home, or after I cook it, or all this sort of stuff, a lot of that doesn't have meaning. So the person is thinking, okay, but like, when is that happening? Why isn't that happening right now? And it causes anxiety. It's the same as when like someone asks for something. A lot of my adults, they will tantrum because they'll say, I want a drink. Mm-hmm. And then their caretaker will say something like, okay, just a few more minutes or soon or something like that. Mm-hmm. And my guy is like, I want a drink. Like, you taught me to say I want a drink, and now you're not giving it to me, and I don't even know what this other thing means. Yeah. So it's very anxiety-provoking, and that's very, very true. So timers are always very, very beneficial to this process. In other words, oh my God, years and years ago, we used to like literally give the individual a clock and say, see, when this handle goes there, you're going to get it. Or just any kind of egg timer or a kitchen timer or something that gives the person the idea that when this rings, you will have what you want. Yeah. Okay. That has a lot to do with the type of question, right? Sometimes, so that's one aspect of what you're talking about. The other aspect of it is, you're right, sometimes the individual's trying to say something other than what they're actually saying. So when Jem was saying, can I have dinner? Perhaps what he was trying to say is, if he was typically developing at that point, he would have said, okay, but I'm really hungry, maybe I can have a snack. Right. Right? And that is just something that wouldn't occur to him. And what he's really trying to say is, I'm really hungry. Yeah. So a lot of times you really do have to pay attention because the question that is being asked, and if you're answering it, what you're saying is you answered it, but it wasn't the right answer. Right. So really, for the person who wrote in, again, that goes to what type of question is he asking? Yeah. Perhaps you're responding in a way that is not what he wants to hear. Yeah. And that he's trying to ask something else. And perhaps you can help him identify what it is he's trying to ask. Yeah. And that would be very true if it was one particular type of thing. It wouldn't apply to you if your brother just asks many different questions repeatedly. Right. Very open-ended, but incredible. Okay, we have a question that just came in recently. My son is 7 years old on the spectrum. We're having difficulty teaching him skills like, is this different or the same? Because he frequently uses echolalia. He can make requests and answer social questions appropriately, but if I say hi and say his name, he repeats hi and says his name and then says hi,
mama. We are using skills program and we're a little stuck on this lesson. Any ideas will be greatly appreciated. Great question.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I was just about to say, you should be using skills.
And they are.
And you are. And I love that you are. So he's 7. I would use a visual prompt.
Okay.
I would specifically teach him. I would write, in the beginning it might not even mean anything to him, but I assume at 7 he's probably reading a little bit. I would just write "Hi Mama" on the card, and so when I would say his name, "Hi," I would hold up what he's supposed to say, and very quickly it'll replace him repeating you, the echolalia, and then I would vary that and have "Hi" other people and their names, and then I would start to fade the visual prompt. So I would make it smaller, 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 and let it disappear, and then he would get the concept. Echolalia does tend to interfere a little bit with your SDs, with your instruction that you're giving. A lot of times with kids who have echolalia, they will repeat. Echolalia in those kinds of situations is a real clear sign that there's not a clear enough understanding of the SD. Now, something like "Hi Mama" doesn't even have, it's a very, very hidden SD, right? It's not an instruction that's clear.
Okay.
It's not, you know, it's not like "touch this." It's I want you to actually respond to me when you hear what I'm saying. So it's a very covert SD.
Okay.
So that's a hard one. Same and different, let's see. So I don't know which phase of same and different you are. I'm trying to imagine how he's echolalic on
Right.
this. So you're saying, because it's not a receptive, because if it was receptive, there's not going to be any verbal response from him. So it's got to be an expressive level of the lesson, which means how are they the same? I don't know where you're at, which SD you're at. Because essentially with same and different, you have, you know, show me 2 things that are the same.
Right.
Show me 2 things that are different. Which one is different? And maybe that's where you're at. Which one is the same?
Okay.
Again, with all responses that you expect from him, write it out.
Okay.
Even if he doesn't read it, by writing it out and showing it to him, he over and over, he will get sort of like sight reading. He'll learn it. He'll memorize it. And the other thing is you can also just have your fingers up, like for a number of words that he's supposed to say.
Okay.
So like, you know, the birds are the same. You know, like show him that he can only say that.
Okay.
A visual cue is incredibly helpful when you have a child who has echolalia, because they're not hearing anything
Right.
to echo.
Right.
They're seeing, and then that is the cue for them as to what they're supposed to respond.
Okay. It's occurring to me that I don't know if it was you or somebody else.
I
Go
apologize. I just thought of something. Is go to the IBT site and look at the visual modifications module.
Wonderful.
The visual modifications module is something like that. Visual modifications, I think it's called, will give you a billion ideas of how to use visual stimuli to prompt responses.
Okay, great. Because I was just thinking we should make a video about, because I
How
know
to do
with pronouns, you end up
Pronouns
having to
different.
do it, because you can't say me, because me means you.
Right.
And so you have to, you know, so I was thinking we need to have a video, but of course IBT has a video, which is wonderful.
Yes, they do. And pronouns is kind of interesting because when we, very long time ago, when we started doing pronouns back in the UCLA days, like the prompt for getting the child, it was with my and your, for instance, touch my nose, and they would misunderstand it, or whose nose, and they would say yours, and so on. And we would always just pair the word my with your own name. So it would be touch my Doreen's nose, touch your Shannon's nose, that sort of thing, and then you drop the second word gradually. So then it would be touch my Doreen's nose, you know, like that. So it would be an intonation prompt.
Okay, interesting.
So all this sort of stuff can happen, of course. And prompting is another module you'd want to look at, because they'll give you a lot of ideas.
So remember that to go to IBT, that's ibehavioraltraining.com. There are many different tabs that you can click on. You want to click on e-learning, then you get your choice of going under for a provider or an educator or a parent. And I want to encourage you to go under the parent one. You have access to the other ones, and if you are moving fast, you can absolutely go and look at those other ones, but it's graduated in terms of the level of jargon and the level of difficulty of understanding. So start with the parent one, and if it's really easy for you in the parent one, feel free to go into the educators. It's not that anybody is, you have to have a code or anything like that. It's open to everyone, but the ones that are in the parent section are less intensive in that all-encompassing jargon.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I often wonder about, given the number of questions we get on this show, for instance, I assume you also get a ton of questions for like Jonathan's and so on. I wonder if parents, particularly parents, I've thought about this in relation to skills a lot, but in general, like I don't know if this would be a service that would be helpful to parents, you know, where especially if you're on a skills account, if you're a skills user, like I can access your account if you give me password or so on, and I can quickly look and see exactly what your child is doing or not doing and what they're working on and how their data looks and all of this. Then I could guide you on, you know, I could literally say, this is what you should be doing, here are some techniques and so on and so forth. I don't know if that's a service that parents would really find valuable. I certainly can try to put something like that together for skill users, but and maybe since we do have a lot of skill users on this show, perhaps parents can write in and tell me if they would find it valuable. Not someone that regularly guides you, but someone that you can just call out to when you have questions or issues or things
of a
like
clinical
this.
nature, because there are technical support already for skills, but if you wanted, you know, just
I don't think we provide the clinical aspect. I think we did intend to, but I'm not sure if we ever have.
I believe that there are some clients who are paying for a certain amount of supervision, but it's more intense. I think what you're talking about is the ability to call, you know, once a month
number, whenever,
right, whenever you need to be able to call and say, hey, I have a clinical question.
Exactly.
You know, I can definitely see the benefit of that, and we'll hope that if you're watching and that's something that you'd be that it would be interesting for you, that it's something you think you'd be interested in, write back to us and let us know if that would be useful to you. I think that's a wonderful idea. I think this is an ideal time to take a break.
Great.
And then we'll be back with more questions for Ask Dr. Doreen. Stick with us.
Hello, activists. Here we are at step 10 of autism empowerment. I like to call this the 3 L's. Live in the now, love thyself, and laugh. First, live in the now. We have to stop on occasion to remind ourselves to be present. Because as autism parents, we're constantly planning ahead for our children's future. We miss the joys of the present moment. Don't miss out on your child's childhood. Catch the joy as it flies by. Love thyself. Never beat yourself up. And forgive yourself for the things you wish you'd done or the things you think you've done wrong. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt said that. Be a good role model of self-esteem for your child. It affects them. And finally, don't forget to laugh. Despite all the trials and tribulations in this world of autism, it is still a beautiful world and often a very funny one. I try to surround myself with friends and family who make me smile and laugh every day. Heard any good jokes lately? Pass them on. Until next time, keep the faith.
Welcome back. We are here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, a true expert in the field of autism. I always like to say a visionary because that really is what describes you in the field of autism. And she is answering your questions right now. You can be writing in on our live feature at autism-live.com. There's a box there. Put your cursor there, type away, hit enter, and you can be talking with us as well. Now, we had a question that came in last week while you were gone, and it's a bit of a mystery, so I'm hoping that you can solve some of this for us. Somebody wrote in and said, I live in Maryland and my son, now 2 years and 3 months, was diagnosed with ASD at 20 months old. We started ABA on his second birthday, so he's now 3 months in. His cognitive function is age appropriate, 24 months, at his last doctor's visit in January. How do I know when an ABA program is intensive? That's her first question. I've been doing my research about skills and it seems intensive and I love the different domains. Is is the skills that is available online the same skills that is used for therapy conducted by the BCBAs at CARD? My son was evaluated, diagnosed at CARD in Baltimore, Maryland, but there was never any mention of skills. Is skills available at CARD in Baltimore, Maryland, perhaps under a different name? And thanks in advance. Now, I will tell you that I wrote back to this mom and said that we'd be talking about this, but I also said to her, I said, I can answer it quickly for you that all of the CARD offices use skills.
Yeah.
And that it is the same card that the BCBAs at CARD use as what parents use when they log on.
It's exactly the same thing. And there's a lot of issues in this.
Right.
Yeah.
But I said to her when I wrote back, I said, now you said that you went in Baltimore.
Right.
I'm assuming that you mean that you went to the Alexandria, Washington office, which will service people in Baltimore. And she wrote back and said, no, I went in Baltimore. And I said, this is a problem for me because there is no CARD in Baltimore.
Right.
Now she wrote back and said, what are you talking about? I went to Johns
Hopkins at Kennedy Krieger Institute. Yeah.
And I said, I don't think we're talking about the same thing. So can you shed some light for us on what the disconnect is?
I'd be happy to, and then I'll answer the parents' questions as well. I actually do hold the copyright on the CARD name and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders name as well, and the trademark on it. And this is ours, and it has been forever. I mean, literally, I've owned this name for, let's see, 25 years, 24 years, I think. The CARD at Kennedy Krieger, which I think was headed by Rebecca Landau. I'm not sure who the head is right now. And Kennedy Krieger is a part of Johns Hopkins University. And therefore, although our lawyers did notify them when they opened that they should not be using this name and that it will cause confusion, which is really that's the issue with trademark and copyright, is that you shouldn't use other people's names because if you will be causing confusion.
Clearly.
And clearly it is.
In this case, yes.
But unfortunately, the lawyers for Kennedy Krieger CARD wrote back to us, to our lawyers, and said that they are part of the Johns Hopkins University. When you are part of a university, a private organization can't touch the university. Like, basically, we don't have any control over that, and they could choose to continue to use this name, which they now have for about 10 years, I think.
Okay.
And also, Johns Hopkins obviously has been in place since the 1800s, and so there's nothing much we can do about it. Now, this situation also occurs in Florida, because the University of Florida system owns a CARD as well, and that is Center for Autism-Related Disabilities, but they do refer to themselves as CARD, and that has often caused a lot of confusion for families as well. We're hopefully going to be opening in Florida. I'm going to take this on. Like, I'm happy to open in Baltimore as well, and just, like, cause them confusion rather than the other way. Now, so that's that, and I wish that, we've had the name for such a long time. I wish when they first opened, they would have considered our attorneys seriously, but unfortunately they didn't. And Kennedy Krieger does a lot of good work, and I would not want to in any way hinder their very good work as well. So,
but that's where the confusion lies.
That is where the confusion lies. Now, if you go to so now going back to your original question, everything that is on skills is exactly what we do. Okay, so every single supervisor at CARD, BCBAs, have their own accounts, and on their accounts they have multiple children, 10 or 15 children. So you as a single user will have one account, and any supervisor at CARD has somewhere around 15. Some of them have 20, 30. It depends. If you're a regional person, then you'll have 100 or so kids that you can access and see their files. I obviously have access to the files of every single child who's a client at CARD anywhere, so about 2,000 accounts. Right. So, and I do review them. And our clinical quality assurance team also, which is our clinical director, our director of quality assurance, Sienna, Evelyn, Sienna, and so on, and a few other very senior supervisors have access to also all the kids at CARD, because their job is to review every single case. Right. Every year. So that's what they do, and they give advice and guidance and so on to our own supervisors. Right. So yes, everything on there is the same thing that you as a parent would see. The first part of the question was intensive, right?
Intensive, yes.
Okay, your child is 2 and has normal IQ. You are talking about this. You have the child that has the absolute positive potential for perfect outcome.
Yeah.
So it is imperative that you do everything right. So now if you're doing this on your own, then I would say that you do need to follow skills, and you don't need to go to a location to get skills. Skills is online. Right. So you go on skillsforautism.com and become a member, and then you will have access to everything that we have access to, and you should do it now, because in about not in a month, maybe in the next 2 months or so, hopefully in April, we're going to launch Skills Book, which is, I don't know that I'm allowed to say too much about it, but it's the entire marketing.
You're going to get me in trouble.
I know. I'm not. Skills Book is very, very good. It's coming out soon, and I think it's important for people to know that, because it's an entire data collection tracking system that helps you input information, but on the back end, it really helps you see numerous different aspects of how your child is doing. In terms of it gives you access to hundreds of graphs showing like every level of every lesson that your child is working on. It helps you organize your log. It's a replacement for paper, basically. You won't need to have a logbook. You'll have pretty much everything. It's a fantastic system. So that's coming out, and if you're a member, you will have access to that. So I really suggest you do this. Please do an intensive program. An intensive program is generally anything over 25 hours. When you have a 2-year-old, 25 hours, if you can spread that over, let's say, 6 or 7 days, is pretty reasonable to do. We're talking maybe 4 hours a day, 6 or 7 days, 3 to 4 hours a day. And with a 2-year-old, you're going to take a lot of breaks, and the sessions will be shorter. So the sessions should probably not be more than, I don't think my 2-year-olds can handle more than an hour and a half at a time. Okay. So I do an hour and a half, then have an hour break, then do another hour and a half, that sort of thing. And if you do 7 days at 3 hours each, you're doing fantastic. And then as your child approaches 3, I would increase those hours. I'd add another session to each day and get closer to 40. I know that a lot of research and people say 25 and 40 is the same. Let me just tell you, I recommend what I would do for my own child, and I would be doing 50 hours. And this is what I've done for the royal families of people in the Middle East and anyone who can afford it, because we've also published on the case, on the issue, that the more hours, the faster. So if you do 50 hours, guess what? You're going to get through it faster. Your child will get through it faster. And you want your child to get through it fast, because the concept is whatever happened occurred before this age, and your child now has the ability to catch up. Yeah. And the sooner you catch your child up, the sooner he or she can just kind of join back regular society. And a lot of my kids don't even remember the early years and what was going on, and their parents are the ones that kind of remind them. So I really do recommend that you hit it hard and go for it. And if I may make a suggestion, you are in Baltimore. I believe we serve Baltimore. It's always easier to have a supervisor. If you have a supervisor, obviously at CARD, you're going to just go pretty smoothly. Even if our Virginia office, our Alexandria office doesn't cover Baltimore directly, I know Remote Services does. Right. So obviously, either way we can cover you. We would give you a supervisor who would see you and your child regularly and would help hire people in your local area. If you're a CARD patient, you're going to get insurance coverage. I mean, that's another positive aspect. I don't know who's covering you right now, but you should get insurance coverage because you're going to need this intensity for a couple of years. And so, but please, whatever you do, make sure that you're hitting it hard now and that your child's moving along the whole way. Yeah. And deal with other stuff too. I get very controlling when I have the 2-year-olds because I want to give everything I can tell them right now, you know. Make sure your child's health is under control. He or she is doing whatever dietary things they need to do based on testing, sleeping well, make sure they're getting nutrients. You know, if there's other health issues, take care of those. Autism should not accompany those. People tend to ignore other health issues just because you have a diagnosis of autism. So, yeah.
And the only thing I would add on top of all of that is that I keep hearing from parents who are saying to me, well, my 2-year-old only had, you know, they're doing great in terms of this, so everybody's telling us we don't have to be as intensive.
Yeah.
If your child is doing well,
just keep doing it. Do more.
Yeah. Don't let them cheat you out of what your child needs because your child is doing well.
Right.
Like if you have to crochet that on a pillow or hang it on your bathroom mirror, because there are people who I'm sure have good intentions, but who don't really understand how to get this done.
Exactly.
And we're sitting here talking with somebody who does know how to get it done and who's been getting it done for a really long time. And you heard her say you are in a really good place. You're optimal,
absolutely,
you know, possibility to, as I'm saying, get it done, which is that your child will in a couple of years be indistinguishable.
Exactly. And that's why it just really fires me up when I talk about. I'm happy to see you. If you want to fly out here and bring your child, I will be happy to do an evaluation and tell you exactly what you have to do. But please, you know, don't slow down because he's doing well. Don't listen to anybody else. Just do what I'm telling you to do because you really do have a lot of options.
Absolutely. Great.
And good luck.
Advice.
It's going to be a fun journey. That's the other part of it is like once you go intensive and you're working with a 2-year-old, oh my God, it's fabulous. It's fabulous.
Is exciting.
It gives me goosebumps thinking about it because every other day the child is changing and bringing like their personality and their character to it, and it's fabulous. It's fun times.
Very exciting. All right, we're going to take another break and be back more with Ask Dr. Doreen after these messages.
Hi, welcome to Camp Discovery, a free-to-play suite of fun, interactive learning games for kids 2 and up, designed by experts in autism. Camp Discovery will open your early learner to a world of new skills, shapes, numbers, colors, locations, emotions, and more. Let's get started.
Please choose a level.
Objects. First, Camp Discovery's Intelligent Preference Assessment determines your child's preferred reward for choosing correctly. Okay, got it. Let's play. Camp Discovery creates a motivating learning environment for your child by minimizing incorrect responses and maximizing successful ones.
Find the shoes.
Respond correctly and your child is rewarded with their favorite animations.
You did it.
Respond incorrectly and our unique prompting system guides your child to the correct answer by making it the largest choice.
That's not it. Try again. Way to go.
Continue to answer correctly and the size gradually reduces until the child makes the correct choice independently.
You win.
Success! Rewards motivate learning. Complete a round and your child is rewarded with a fun mini-game. Track your child's progress with easy-to-read graphs. Multiple settings options allow you to customize Camp Discovery to your child's unique needs. All this in one single app, the Camp Discovery app, available for free on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon Store.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We are here with the wonderful Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, who is answering your questions in real time. If you have a question, autism-live.com. Every Wednesday, go there and pose your question on that feature that's there, the white box, totally free. We also have other ways that you can get in touch with us. You can pose your question on our Facebook page, or you can send it in via Twitter. Lots of different ways. So we have a question from a parent. It's kind of lengthy, so I'll try to go through this quickly, but it's on Facebook. Hi there. I was just wondering if you have ever heard of anything about pushing more people to communicate the same way as them. I see and hear lots of people say parenting is hard, and I know for a fact it's not. Trying to have your own life and being a parent is hard. You have to pick one. I'm sick of forcing my children to mold to society. It would be nice to meet them halfway. Everyone can do it. My 3 autistic boys, a baby, and even animals can understand each other. We just have to use the one language we all share, and that's body language. Every time I bring up how well we communicate with my ABA person, they say, well, we want more people to understand them. What they don't get is that they do. Just think if someone says sorry, that's them trying to get out of trouble the easy way. My kids don't want to hear that noise. They want you to show them that you're sorry, to hug them, and mope around, and don't try to use your mouth for nothing but eating and playing. To use your mouth to speak, and to someone it means you're only trying to manipulate them. Just please tell me if there's anything like that. If there any therapy out there that just espouses.
I don't think there is, and I get what you're saying. I actually, what was the first part of what you read? It was exactly something I was thinking yesterday as I was walking to work.
About the body language that people can understand?
No, it's fine. I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I think it was something about just like, meeting halfway with our kids and with society and so on, and I think that's kind of what I see happening anyway, to be honest with you. So let me go back, and you shouldn't be doing ABA. Like, if you're doing ABA, you're wasting your time, and the ABA provider is just charging you. I mean, I don't know why you're doing ABA, because ABA is very, very different from your theory of life. It's completely different. With ABA, you look at, I mean, after all, ABA is based on behavioral theory, right? And behavioral theory comes from the whole concept of the individual is a box, is a black box. We don't try to see what's inside the individual. We try to, pure behaviorism, very, very pure behaviorism, says, I'm going to manipulate the stuff around this box, and I'm going to change how this box behaves. That's literally core behaviorism, going all the way back to history of behavioral psychology. Now, of course, things have changed, and, people are much more understanding of human nature and cognition. And we, for instance, at CARD, as you know, Shannon, we write a lot about how changing environmental factors and so on interacts with cognitive stuff, what's inside the box, and therefore has different responses. And you can also mold cognitive and personality experiences, and all that sort of stuff molds the environment as well. So there's much more of an interaction, but pure ABA does not really consider the types of things that you're talking about. And let me just go back and be very, very clear, and this, you can be very clear. Here's your child. Your child has a disability, or what we call a disorder, and let's go back to the definition of a disorder. A disorder, and this is the pure definition of anything that is in the ICD-9-10 or in the DSM-5, is as a disorder. This is what it means. It doesn't mean that they're different. It means they are so different that they have problems functioning at work, school, or home. That's the definition of a disorder. Now, I could have, and that's the beginning of every single disorder in the DSM. So I could be someone that has communication problems. Mm-hmm. I could have a lot of difficulties with anxiety, and therefore I would have a lot of sort of obsessive compulsive routines. Right. And I would really become gradually, or had become gradually in my life, sort of antisocial, didn't really want to communicate with a lot of people, didn't feel comfortable, didn't really like giving people eye contact, didn't communicate well with them, whatever, didn't speak the language, had apraxia, couldn't speak, whatever, all of those symptoms that add up to a diagnosis of autism. Right. However, I'm functioning fine. I'm doing great. I go to work. I don't have a ton of friends, but I don't feel lonely. Right. I'm perfectly fine. I socialize with 1 or 2 other people who are very similar to me. I have a personal life that's not that much different from anybody else's, or, might be different, but I'm very comfortable in it. And that's that.
So you don't have a disorder.
I don't have a disorder. A disorder is something that makes it difficult for the individual to function in the world. Okay, now let's go back to your 3 sons. You have 3 children, and at this point in life, I don't know what their ages are, you have produced an environment that allows them to communicate with each other non-verbally and in whichever manner they do communicate, and it's working. And that's fabulous. That's great. If you are sure that going forward in life they will continue to have access to such an environment, then you don't need to do anything. It's really that simple. The only reason that we do try to modify the behavior of our children is simply because we want to give assurance to the parents that when the child is older, not even when the child is older now, if the child wants to go to a restaurant, if the child wants to order some food, if they want to go to school and play with other children, if they want to grow up and go to have friends and get married and go to university and have their own children and communicate their pains and their fears and their happiness and their struggles and share with others and like do all the things that other people do, then we have to teach them how to do that. And we also have to teach them how to not, how to use language to do that. Because unless we teach them how to use language, and you bring up language, if I don't use language to do that, then I'm already limiting their interaction with the world, because that's how the world interacts, right? Now, if the world was non-vocal, then it would be a different thing. So it really is about merging. It is about doing that, coming to that middle point that you said, like, let's go halfway. I completely agree. Change the child halfway, change the environment halfway. And that has happened already, if you understand that. For instance, everywhere you go, you can now buy gluten-free food. That is an environmental change that, let me tell you, we didn't have 20 years ago. We don't have right now in most countries outside of the US, just so you know. You cannot find gluten-free food in South Africa. Do you know how hard it is to access that? Here, you can go to islands and they have a gluten-free menu.
Olive Garden announced in a commercial last night that they have a gluten-free pasta.
There you go. Or how many people out there now are very comfortable and familiar and know how to handle a child with autism, or how many teachers have received training? These are all environmental modifications that we've made. It's like the environmental modifications that we've made for people who are visually impaired with having Braille signs on elevators. What about movie theaters that are now sound sensitive for individuals with autism? There's a lot of environmental change happening. Yeah. And who knows, you might be right. By the time your children grow up, there might be enough environmental change to allow the child to function just fine, not having language, not having social behavior, not having, having some repetitive routines and so on and so forth. I don't know. I can't tell you whether that will happen or not. The key is, though, to make sure that the child's abilities reach a point where, regardless of what the environment does or doesn't make happen, the child can survive and have an adaptive life. So, and that is, you are the parent, and that is your choice for your child, and you can certainly, but I really don't recommend that you do ABA. You're not going to find too many other ABA people who have the same, I guess, long-term view that I do. You know, I was a psychologist before I became a behavior analyst. So I want to say that from the ABA perspective, that's what you do. You use environmental stimuli to change the child's behavior. That is the definition of ABA. So if you don't want to change your child's behavior, don't be doing ABA. Are there other types of things? There are. I'm sure there's other types of things. There's holding therapy. There's play-related types of therapies. Their efficacy, I don't know if what their scientific knowledge, research behind them are. I just don't know. You might be more interested in RDI. I don't know enough about RDI to be able to tell you that, but RDI does sort of train the parent more in terms of entering the child's world. You might be more interested in floor time, DIR, which is much more child kind of led. So those are areas that you should be looking at more.
The only thing that I want to say, though, is that for parents who are out there and listening to that and thinking, wow, there are moments in which it's difficult for you, I think every parent has a moment where you go, really? Does he have to do it that way? There's a great scene in The A Word when the little boy, Jack Riley, is laying on his side and he's watching his trains go by. Yeah. And they make him sit up and they say, watch the trains properly. And he cries and he tantrums and he has a 20-minute tantrum. And the mom even says, why can't he just lay on his side and look at the train that way? And the therapist explains very quickly, well, you know, we could let him do that, but that means when he's 4, he won't be able to play with other children side by side. You have to make a choice.
Sure. And that's one side of it. And that's a really good example, Shannon, thank you for bringing that up, because the other side of it is, the only reason, and this is actually very, very important that you brought this up, you know, with very young ABA people, they do sometimes tend to go overboard and become very rule-governed and rigid. And that is not good either. Now, the main reason that we do, like, will not let your child lay down, it's not because we don't want him to lay down. He could lay down next to another child and do that as well. It's because something in the manner in which he's doing it gives us a cue that this is a visual self-stimulatory type of behavior. Now, if it actually is a visual, and it sounds like it is, because once you disrupt it, the child gets upset for half an hour. If there's a behavior that doesn't matter what it is, okay, it's not even about the visual anymore, it's not about the play. Anything that a child will tantrum 30 minutes or 20 minutes about, if you stop them, that is obsessive in nature. It has now become like an addiction, which is what self-stimulatory behaviors are. So therefore, your child is lacking flexibility. And if I cannot help your child overcome things like that, that means he or she will prefer for the rest of his life to do visual self-stimulatory behaviors, during which time he's not learning from the environment. That's the key to getting rid of self-stimulatory behaviors. It's opening the world up to them and saying, hey, instead of body rocking, instead of visually gazing at this thing, which I know gives you some level of sensory calm or a sensory whatever it is that we don't know yet, why kids do visual gazing and so on, I want you to look at things in the normal way. I want you to stop yourself from doing that thing which you like to do so much and you've done since you were a little guy, you know, because I want you to pay attention to all the other stuff that's going on, and I want you to have a normal visual, you know, response level and all that. That's the key to all of this. It's like, you don't have to change the things that are fine. You know, if you give me a pencil, I'll be playing with the pencil. That's self-stimulatory. But you know what? It's not going to interfere with any other part of my life. It's fine.
Absolutely.
So it's all about that. It's all about how you integrate to the world.
This is a great discussion. I want to squeeze in a couple of questions because we're getting close to the end here. How can I help my son transition favorite toys out of his room and into the playroom so that they can be shared with siblings? He's fine cleaning them up and putting them away, but tantrums when they have to leave his room or when they can't leave the playroom and go into his room. Thank you for your advice. It's kind of along the lines of what we were talking about. If you're going to tantrum about something, then
it's something upsetting. This is a kind of a cute one, actually.
Yeah.
So it's about, I don't know which one it's about. There's two different factors here. One thing is he might not want them to be taken out of his room. That's one behavior you're going to have to shape. Another one is having siblings play with it. That's a whole different behavior. So, and I think it all has to do with him not trusting the fact that it'll come back to him. So I would suggest that you do one or the other. Like, I would suggest that you actually do the shaping of it going out of the room first. And that's very simple. You just have, you know, you will have him place the toy outside of his door for 3 seconds, and then he can take it. And then it's like 1 minute. Then he can take it, and then it's 5 minutes, and then he can take it. And make sure that during the time that the toy is out there, nobody's really messing with the toy. And then gradually you will increase the distance, and you will increase the time. And and you should also probably have like a basket or a place where he can place them in the playroom. And while they're in the playroom, nobody's touching them, okay? He's just taking them gradually to the playroom, one at a time, short distance first, gradually increasing, and put them in that basket. And then, you know, but you have to keep it on a schedule. So like if you're past 5 minutes, now you got to go to like 1 day and so on and so forth. At night, you can allow him to take his basket back to his room. Make sure that it's fair. Make sure you're not increasing his anxiety. Make sure you're doing it slow enough that he doesn't really freak out about it. Once that's completely under control, which should take you about a month, then you can have him sit in the playroom with a basket next to him and have a sibling play with a toy with him for 1 minute, and then he gets it back, and then 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes, and then he will realize that gradually that as the siblings play with these toys, they're still his, and he can always take them back to his room, and that's that. By the way, hoarding, which is what he's doing, is a sign of slight levels of anxiety. So he's just trying to maintain control. These are my things. I don't really want to share them, all that sort of stuff. Later on, of course, it'll be very important to teach sharing behavior with others. But I mean, that's how you do it. You would do a gradual shaping of behavior.
Love it. Another question here about potty training. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My son is 3 years, 3 months. He has been potty training for 4 months. Every time we take him, he is successful, but he's not manding. I follow through the schedule, and is this normal?
Yeah, it's fine. It's a little hard. Boys will tend to go a little long with this. He's not asking to go to the bathroom, but he's following his schedule. And I assume the schedule, you are reminding him. Start fading yourself out gradually. So what I would do is just like maybe he's 3. It's going to be a little bit hard. Right now, I would start with you just, instead of saying it's time to go, like you'll say it's time to go to the bathroom, but you'll pair that with a buzzer, let's say, or a little bell, ding, or something like that. And so you'll do that continuously, and then you'll gradually reduce your vocalization. So it won't be like, let's go to the bathroom. It'll be like, let's go, ding, and then he'll know it's time to go to the bathroom. Okay. That way you will gradually start to fade out your reminder, you being the stimulus for him to go. And then he will start depending on the timer. Okay, now the timer, I assume you've already passed, like, I'm not sure, it's a 3-year-old, so it depends on his schedule too. Like, you really can't expect independence unless you're also approaching 20 to 30 minutes blocks, 30 minutes or so at least. Okay. So, you know, your schedule has to increase, obviously, right? Whereas you have to be very careful. Like, I have children where if I went from 20 to 25 minutes, they start having massive accidents, and I had to go back and do 21. And then next week 22, and so it's a gradual process. You have to be careful with this. And then so he'll stay on the timer for a little bit, or a buzzer, or whatever it is. And the other thing that I would recommend you do is when he goes to the bathroom, I would have a very positive reward, edible reward for him in the bathroom. For instance, a little bowl of candy or something that you're allowed to give him so that each time he goes, he gets something. The reason I'm saying this is that the #1 fastest form of conditioning that occurs in human beings has to do with taste. And if he starts to condition the time frame of, let's say, 30 minutes to an hour or something like that. An hour is, by the way, as your child ages, there's different intervals that are appropriate for a child to go, and depending on the amount of liquid he takes. So if he starts to condition the time frame to an edible reward, he'll pick up the time frame on his own. He won't need the buzzer anymore. Okay. His body will condition to, oh, it's about an hour now. Oh, yeah, I think I have to go. He's just not getting the message of his body yet. Okay. And pairing it with an edible will help him. Interesting. So interesting. I'm going to squeeze one last question in here. My son is 7 years old and is attending a public school in an autism classroom. He has provided a sensory diet throughout the day. Okay. He's reinforced with a trampoline and a blanket/tent during therapy time at home because he's undersensitive to movement and touch. Are there any suggestions you can provide in terms as to when this break should be allowed for sensory? And thank you so much. That's so hard. It's just like when my kids are sensory, that is a very minimal amount of sensory, by the way, for a child who has sensory needs. I don't know how frequently he's getting it. I would say with our kids who have tactile sensory needs, when we say they're on a sensory diet, we're talking every approximately 5 minutes or every 10 minutes they get exposure to some sort of sensory. And it's not like, you should have an OT in school who is trained with sensory integration, who can explain to you exactly why they're doing. Trampoline is something that elevates activity level. The blanket or stuff like that is something that reduces activity level, or the tent. So I'm not sure if they're trying to balance his activity level. I think you said something about he is non-responsive to...
He's under-responsive to... Undersensitive to movement and touch.
Movement and touch. I don't know exactly what that means. Under responsive to touch. Okay, maybe he's, I don't know how, whoever has told you that, I'm not sure what they mean by that.
Yeah.
I would assume that means he doesn't feel touch as much. He doesn't feel pain, perhaps. He doesn't feel heat. I'm not sure. But I would say, some of my kids, what you're saying is not that frequent. Like, some of my kids, literally in their therapy room, we have, boxes of rice and beans and whatever else, and they go to it every 5 minutes as a reward. Other kids who need to be exposed and don't like that touch, we are exposing them every, 20 minutes or so. So it sounds to me like you're using sensory stuff as a reward more. I'm not sure. So perhaps you can write in with a little bit more detail, and I can try to help.
Great. So if you'll take the opportunity to do that, and then we can address that next week.
Sounds
good. We've got a lot of things left to talk about next week, but we covered a lot of ground today. It was really, really remarkable. So we want to thank Dr. Granpeesheh for being here. Keep your questions coming in. You can go ahead and write them in. I do monitor her throughout the week and save questions for her, and sometimes I will email you back and say, this is a question that we're going to wait and address next week. So do know that that's a possibility. I can only do that, though, if you include an address for me to send back. And remember that I don't share those. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a break and look at the A word now. This is that documentary that I was just referring to, ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. We're in the early stages of his early intervention, intensive behavioral intervention at this point in the series, where he's been getting therapy for about a month, and things are starting to change, and that redirection that we were talking about earlier happens in this episode. We get to see some great scenes of the therapist redirecting him in a very positive way. So take a look. This is the A word, but when we come back, we'll be here for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be here, and our very special guest today is Reed Jackson. We're going to have Mr. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson with us, and I've got some great questions. A wonderful dad, amazing autism dad, and a rare opportunity for us to pin him down, get him for a few minutes so that we can enjoy his company. You won't want to miss it. But first, take a look at the A word.
Wow, you have so many words today.
Oh, he's just booming with language. It's crazy. He can say 2-syllable words now. He can say purple, guitar. Guitar. Before it was just tar, now it's guitar. So it's getting really close. You can say pancake. Right? Pancake. You can say butterfly. You can say butterfly.
And when did this start, the 2 syllables?
I noticed it Monday, so 4 days ago, that he started to say on his own. What is this? What is this? Book! He's been managing for things, so that means asking for things a lot more now that he knows the label to. So book, guitar.
And he's counting now. The words aren't clear, but they're the same every time. One day Cheryl said 1, and he said 2. And then she said 2, and he said D. And then she came to me and said, he counts to 10. And I said, no, he doesn't, because he counts to 10.
1. 1. Yeah. 2. Good. Good job. 4. 5. That's right. 5. You want to do it again? kind of like something he has to do before he goes and sees you. But I think it's just more obvious this past couple days that I've noticed. Again? No, not going that way. No. It's like he really needs to go over there. No. We're not going to go over there. No. Mm-mm. You can go this way. We'll play around here. You want to blast off? Okay. You want up? Okay. 1, 2, 3, blast off! Whee! I want to see if he's going to run over there one more time. Let's go over there. Let's go play over there. All right. Here, you want to draw? There you go.
We're ducking under the desk. We got things going on under the desk.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and I'm very excited about today. You look gorgeous,
Thank you.
always.
You look gorgeous.
Thank you. I love Wednesdays because first I get to spend an hour with Dr. Granpeesheh, and then I get to spend an hour with you.
I love Wednesdays too because I sit here and listen to Doreen before I come in, and wow, we were talking about things that were. She was answering questions that I could really relate to. The getting rid of the baby toys and the age-inappropriate toys, that was a real issue in our house. And we had a donation project, which really worked. We had a big basket that he would put his items in, and we did it on a regular basis. And sometimes he'd go out searching for them and want them back. But donating them to, he really responded to the idea of donating them to his kids in the preschool where he went to school. That really, as long as he feels like he's helping other children, he likes that.
I have to say, you've done a great job. I have moved toys to the garage, and Jem's ready to get rid of them. I have a hard time. I
It's
have
like your
the
kids'
hoarding.
baby clothes.
I have the hoarding thing that Dr. Granpeesheh was talking about, the anxiety. I'm the one that needs therapy for that. So the fact that you're willing to let them go, and if Jem were having any anxiety about it, forget it. It wouldn't happen. So I admire you greatly.
All right.
Like,
well, it's not an easy one. So parents, hang in there, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got a couple of in the news stories before we bring my husband, Reed Jackson, on.
I'm very excited about your husband. And another show, we'll have my husband be on the show at some point. But I'm very excited to have Reed here because, first of all, I'm a big fan of him. You know I'm a big fan of you. And I'm a big fan of the two of you together as a couple. I think... I think you guys are a wonderful lesson for people because you've been through some really intensive challenges.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that.
Yes, we absolutely will.
And, I always say the thing about autism is it's like that one thing that remains, and life still happens around you. You still have deaths in the family. You still have financial challenges. You still have, more so with a child with autism, you still have health challenges that parents have. And amidst all that, you've got the autism, which changes the way everything else is handled. So that's, I think, an interesting thing that you will be talking with Reed about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because he certainly had his own health challenges, which we'll talk about. But let's talk about the autism-friendly travel now on Royal Caribbean.
Don't you love this?
I do
a great
too.
thing.
This is
we have
a
Broadway
wonderful
shows that we can take our children to. AMC Theaters has movie-friendly experiences. And now Royal Caribbean Cruise has said we want to make sure that this experience is friendly for people who have autism in the family. Yeah. Remarkable.
Yeah, they said following guidelines set by Autism of the Seas, which I don't know what that is. I guess it's an organization. The cruise line has now incorporated new youth programs, trained daycare staff, and specialized meals that cater to autism-sensitive dietary restrictions like gluten or dairy-free options. They've also created a storybook that helps introduce the concept of a cruise to a child with autism by showing them what they can expect during their trip. Other amenities include special movie screenings with brighter lighting and open policy towards talking than walking around the room. The cruise line is also considering implementation of less stressful boarding and disembarkation for autistic passengers. So I think this is Mike Sobel, the founder and president of Autism on the Seas, who I guess got this whole thing going, is providing specially trained staff among the popular cruise line to assist with these families. And it's Royal Caribbean's the first to receive a line-wide accolade. So this is really great, and we want to commend Royal Caribbean for doing this, and I might consider a cruise now.
Well, and we know a mom who's scheduled to go on one of these cruises in, I think it's March or April, and so she has promised to let us know and be on the show and talk to us about.
And maybe we can get this somebody from Autism on the Seas to come to be a guest on this show, and we can talk to them about what their plans are.
Now, are you a cruise person? Have you ever done a cruise?
Never. I was on the Queen Elizabeth II back in my television days doing a story on it when it first hit the seas again after a long absence. So I have, we were treated like royalty being the television crew on the ship. But no, have not done any other cruise besides like that weekend cruise on the QE2. How about you?
I get car sick on a stationary bicycle.
Okay.
So the whole idea of me taking a vacation where I'm in constant motion, probably not the best idea.
Yeah.
I've always thought that at some point I would just get over that. It seems like a very romantic thing to do. We went down to do the ice sculptures, the ice show that happens every year now in LA. That's right by the Queen Mary.
Right.
So we went just to walk on the Queen Mary to see what that was about. And both my husband and my child were so freaked out by how high above the water they were. They wouldn't even walk to the railing. And I said, well, that takes care of that. We will not be the cruise family. Which, just seems like a funny thing. I just always thought I was going to have to suck it up and get over it. But now I'm excused, probably for life.
Probably for life.
And but I know so many people who have done the cruise thing with kids, and they say it is a wonderful, you are just so pampered. You don't have to go anywhere if you don't want to.
That's what I love.
Or although if you stop places, you can go some places. Great vacation if you can handle the movement.
All right. Well, I'm going to check this one out because it sounds like something that our family would like to do.
Could be very fun.
Okay.
Now, you also had sent us a couple of different stories. One here about autism after 22.
They're saying for certain families with severely disabled children, turning 22 is huge, and they're calling it the age 22 divide.
So that's that cliff at 22.
It's the cliff, yes. And this particular story was about Massachusetts and how the special need ages out of the public school system at 22 and into adult services if they qualify. And Massachusetts, which is a state that's very much respected for its comprehensive services and response to different disabilities, admits that they are totally unprepared. And a representative and CEO, Michael Maloney of Horace Mann Educational Associates, says that the adult system unequivocally is not ready for the tide of autistic children aging into adulthood. Now, we have heard this again and again and again. They're hoping that Massachusetts is sounding an alarm here and is going to start leading the way. I know there's a lot of concern here in California. I know Senator Steinberg's office, this is one of his primary concerns, although he is terming out of the Senate. So we don't know who our big advocate is going to be in the Senate.
But we certainly hope that Senator Darrell Steinberg has higher political aspirations.
Yes, we do, because he's really led the way among states in not only the insurance laws, but in many other changes with regional center, changes with the way schools are funded, that kind of thing. So it's just, once again, we keep hearing the bell being sounded for the fact that we're not ready, but yet the concrete plan has not really been formulated, I think, particularly on a nationwide basis. And this is yet another reason why we're calling for a national policy and a national program. And one of the main things that most of the advocates that I've spoken to with adults on the spectrum, young adults, is the need for a database of companies, corporations, where these young people can get employment, get training. That seems to be the #1 need right now. And I know Dr. Granpeesheh that CARD is starting an adult services division. I've been working with them on, possibly some programs through some hospitals and finding for all levels of the spectrum, because we know now that if we set up a behavioral system that some very what we might consider need job training, but a lot of our kids, they may have, even some cognitive delays, be low functioning on the spectrum, but they can do things like pack things. They can do things that are very rote with the help of the behavioral team that comes in and sets up the training. So we'll keep you informed on this. If you have any stories or any innovative programs, we spent some time with Exceptional Ventures down in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which is such an innovative program.
Absolutely.
Where a young group of MBAs and entrepreneurs are working with the large adult autism population that flocked there when their children, a lot of families flocked there when their children were younger to
for
get...
the TEACH program.
For the TEACH program out of UNC, Chapel Hill, and University of North Carolina. And now those kids are in their 20s, and what their parents did was very innovative. Their parents went to the university, enlisted the MBAs, and said, come up with businesses that you can employ our kids. So that's doing very well. We're hoping that's a model for other families.
And how about Torquil Sone that we had on the show?
Sone.
Doing a lot of great things, taking organizations that are computer-based and that want to hire a workforce that is highly skilled, will be incredibly loyal, hardworking, detail-oriented, and pairing with that company to find out what exact skills their workforce needs to have, and then training individuals on the autism spectrum for those jobs. Really remarkable. And he's now here in the United States pairing with companies. So if you know a company that is looking for a workforce that is
particularly
amazing.
an IT company.
Yes,
that's what he does. So
amazing. So we'll keep you posted on all of these things, and hope that we can make this cliff a little bump.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because let's face it is a bump whether you are on the autism spectrum or not. I know a lot of parents that have kids that are 21 that they go, after college, how they get jobs as well. But it's really a cliff for our kids that are on the autism spectrum.
Right.
A huge, huge cliff.
And then sort of along those lines, here's another study that was conducted for Special Olympics by Gallup and the Center of Social Development and Education at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. They found that just 1 in 3 with intellectual disabilities are employed in the state of Massachusetts. So that's a very low number.
It's a horrifying number, and I will say that there have been other studies that have put the number even higher than that. It is the highest percentage of unemployment out of all sectors. All sectors.
Yeah, and they broke it down. So 2/3 then have no job. Of those working, slightly more than half are employed in competitive environments, alongside those without disabilities, while 38% work in sheltered workshops and 9% are self-employed. So that's, it's a concern once again. And I think like many things in this country, the crisis arrives. We're warned about the crisis. And, the tsunami's coming, but very little is done, and then the crisis is here. So...
And then a bunch of people say, how did we get here?
How did we get here? And what are we going to do now? But it's like scrambling to put systems in place.
Yeah, we're all trying to get ahead of this tsunami, but...
I never dreamed of the day that Wyatt would be 12 years old.
And here we are. Isn't it funny? It seems like it speeds up.
It does. You think, well, we've got forever to work on a program to get them up to their best of their abilities, but then all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, 6 years till high school ends, and then where do we go?
Well, Jem's in 5th grade right now, and I just recently had the panic of, oh my goodness, I've been thinking, we have another year, we have another 2 years before we worry about junior high. high, but we really don't.
No.
It's middle school.
We're
and it's
always
next
thinking
fall.
ahead as
Panic
parents of
now.
kids on the spectrum.
Yeah, I'm like, panic now, woman. don't put off the panic for another time. It's time to panic now.
But we don't want anybody to panic. We want to be proactive. And they say really, Doug Baker, who is a advocate and financial advisor for families who we've had on the show, and we should probably have him back on to talk about this. He says age 14 parents is the age you need to really be thinking about. Where are they going to be at 18? Are they going to be in a vocational program? Are they able to go on to higher education with a community college or a college placement? What are you going to do? And then financially, how are you going to plan? Where are they going to live? Are they going to be self-sufficient? You have to start checking out various living situations for your child. So 14 is the age.
Does that take your breath away a little bit?
It does.
It takes my breath right away.
Totally.
No panic, being proactive. All right. Now we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and have a lovely conversation with Mr. Reed Jackson, who you're very familiar with.
Yes, my husband. And I'm going to let you lead the way on that conversation. And I'll jump in where I can help.
All right. So stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp. and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get 2 kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear Act Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're so thrilled that here in the studio with us we have today Mr. Reed Jackson, and he is Nancy's husband. So if you're sensing that there is some nepotism here, there's no job here, but if you're sensing nepotism, you're correct. We're so thrilled to have you here. It's the first time we've had you actually on the show.
And a pleasure to be here.
Well, so I'm a huge fan of yours. I don't know that I've actually voiced that to you, but I am a huge fan of yours. And of course, I'm a huge fan of this woman. And I wanted to start, give a little bit of background, and tell us about when you met her. And what did you think about her when you met her? How did this all come to be? I know.
What kind of show is this?
I know. But I think it's good for us for people to know how this happened.
It was a blind date.
Ah.
And
what did you think when you saw her?
I was hoping that she was my date and not the roommate. And that's how I met her dog.
She brought the dog to the blind date?
No, it was at her apartment.
He came to pick me up.
Okay.
And he jumped all over me, and I rolled on the floor, and then I got up and introduced myself
That
to
was,
Nancy.
that was the clincher. Walden, the Wonder Dog, my adored golden retriever, the minute Reed came to the door, jumped up on him, pushed him down to the ground, and Reed just rolled over to the floor, and I'm like, okay, you got me.
So you were done. When did you know that she was the gal for you? What did she do that you said, this is it?
She didn't do anything. She just was.
Yeah.
And that's all. That sums it up.
And you knew you wanted to spend the rest of your time with her.
Pretty right away. We were inseparable. Yeah.
Okay, so you get married, and you guys had decided that you were going to be parents.
Yes.
But that was a hard road to get to be parents. And I know you've got your book that very soon your book is going to come out, and you detail some of this.
Very soon.
It is.
We talk about our struggles. I talk about our struggles in the book.
Yes.
Yeah, the first.
It's a secret. Don't tell anybody.
All right.
It's really about my life since Reed and I met, and. We were both married before,
right.
And we were both employed in television. I was a television producer and executive, and Reed was a television mini journalist and other things. And we were older parents. We met at a later age and married in '92. And
you were 36. I was 46.
That's late to be thinking about having kids.
That's it's about the same timetable that Jim and I did that as well, so I can relate to that.
So let me just say that after a long struggle with infertility and in vitro and egg donor and failed adoption and a horrific adoption scam, we finally were successful at domestic adoption.
That's Wyatt.
And Wyatt came into your lives. So I imagine, as about to be dad, and especially since you'd waited a while to go through this, that you had some expectations. What did you think? What was the vision in your head of having a son and what it was going to be like?
Wow, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
That really is. Well, first of all, he was beautiful, and we got him the moment he was born, and it was as if it was Nancy's child,
Our child that was at the hospital.
At the hospital, and they gave us a bed, and she spent the night, and he was this little thing.
Yeah.
And I think when the doctors were looking over him, to check if he was okay, I said, "There's an indentation in his back. Does he have spinal bifida?"
So you're already looking him over, making sure.
He laughed, and he said, "No, that's
perfect baby boy."
Perfect baby boy. And the night or the day that we took him home, and I sat on the couch at home with him, and I remember saying to Nancy, now I know how much my father loved me.
Yeah.
Because that was the feeling.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? It's eye-opening to feel that.
It is amazing, and that seemed to be wonderful, and he was very physical, and I know he turned over, I turned over on his bassinet or wherever I was changing him when he was, I forget, 8 weeks.
It was crazy.
You know,
amazingly
because
progressive.
I turned this way, and then I turned back this way, and he was right side up, and I said, "How did you do that?"
He's ahead of schedule.
And he was
He
exceptional.
was on everything.
He was.
He walked at 8 months, 9 months. It was crazy. He was one of the earliest walkers.
And I was thinking, the little tank he was. I mean, very physical. And I was a sports executive at the time, and I was a good athlete. It was never, anything remarkable, but I was a solid player in everything I did in Division III sports. And I saw him as, at least doing that.
Yeah. You're going to go do sports.
We're going to go sports together and have this great life, and he could wheel me around or beat me around the bases, because I was 57 when he was born, or actually 56, but turned 57.
Amazing. And so hopeful at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But then things start to disintegrate, right? He starts to change. And
it's, we can go over and over it, and I know you've discussed it. It was about 18 months after he was running and walking and talking, and we had a first set of shots, and that night he developed a fever, very, very high fever, which lasted a few days. Mm-hmm. And then slowly, it went away, and then slowly we saw, I think Nancy more than me, the regression, or how he stopped. He seemed to be slipping away.
And I want to make clear that Reed and I don't believe that vaccines cause autism.
Right.
We believe they can contribute with certain children, and Wyatt did have a hyperactive immune system. We did later have him tested. And they do believe that a variety of toxins could have altered what was a genetic predisposition. That's what we believe. So I don't want to be...
Nancy wouldn't tell me some of the things that she had gone through, like scratches and stuff. I worked on things and through the kitchen wall. Contractor, he worked on studio set. There was then a lot of frustration, a lot of things happened. Yeah, what do you do about it?
Right, let's pause.
Treatment of autism.
I'm going to talk a little bit about
Professional guide ABA-based interventions. Choose.
I had a chance to review your BIP today.
You can learn more at iBehavioral.
Shannon and Nancy. Nancy and I are sitting about some of the challenges that they have faced. We've talked about the fact that they tried to have a child and went through many different things before they very successfully adopted Wyatt.
Right.
And that Wyatt eventually began to regress and went into autism, and that it was a very difficult time. But what was the decision that you guys made about how you were going to cope with the autism? What did you decide to do?
Well, I mean, if you want the broad strokes, we were going to stay with it, whatever it was, but Nancy was the lead. Yeah. She went and found these forums, and one of our neighbors tried to tell us a couple of times that they suspected it, and it was the wife, a dear friend wife of a doctor. And we told our doctor, and I'll just keep it private that way, and he said, just another, disease of the week diagnosed by a housewife. And then we met some friends where we used to go up north in the country and we bought some property and we're planning to spend weekends there, and she introduced Nancy to a magazine that was all about mothering and natural health, because they suspected something, and these folks are totally off the grid.
Right.
And they grow their own food, their cows, their chickens, their goats. And it's a wonderful idea. But it
not
was
entirely practical for all of us.
Well, I couldn't have commuted to work. And But that was when we first found out about it, and she went to a conference. Actually, she went twice. She went to the weekend, she thought it was, but it wasn't there yet, and she called me and said, well, it's next weekend.
I drove to Long Beach. It was a DAN conference, Defeat Autism Now, which for those of you that are our viewers that don't know, has now been renamed the MAPS, for MAPS doctors. But it was at that conference that Wyatt was almost four.
Okay.
And we
at
had
that
him
point,
diagnosed.
You're PDD-NOS at this point.
We're PDD-NOS, which was a joke.
We went through everything.
They had diagnosed him with PDD-NOS when he had full-blown autism.
We walked into these places, and there were schools and reassuring words, and you know, you want to throw up if your child is autistic, and because it's an alien world, and you know, really not knowing anything about it, and this is not. It's not what the vision that we were talking about earlier.
Right. It's not that you're going to go play basketball hoops with him.
Right. And then there was that anger and frustration and fear, and then the anger, not so much at autism, but people not knowing enough to tell
us the truth
correctly, or tell us correctly what was wrong and how to address it.
And I think we have to stop and point out, you know, here you both are very successful executives in the know, in the information and entertainment industry.
I had done shows on autism when I was Lisa Gibbons' executive producer. We did an entire hour on autism and mothers.
And you're fairly connected to a lot of high-level people, and still people didn't tell you, and you didn't find out the information in a timely way.
You said we were in the know, and that's KNOW. We were in the know. No, N-O.
Yeah.
Right. But you would think, I think a lot of people think, you know, they're like, oh, well, I just didn't know, and they take it on and they beat themselves up about it. But it's a great case in point that you guys didn't know either.
It doesn't
you weren't
matter.
in the KNOW.
It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, when it hits a family. And I think we can see this also with, you know, Bob and Suzanne Wright, who had Autism Speaks. Their grandson has autism, and he has enormous challenges. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. But back to that Defeat Autism Now conference, that was the day that I called Reed, and Wyatt was almost 4, and I heard Dr. Andrew Levinson speak. He is a biomedical doctor. And the second speaker was Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. And Wyatt had been fully diagnosed for a year. It was the first time I had ever heard the words applied behavioral analysis. Nobody at the school district had said that. No, that was the shift for us. I called Reed, and I told you I met people who are going to help our son.
Yes, pretty much the exact words.
Okay, and so you start ABA. Just to fast forward a little bit, you start ABA, and you're starting to make progress. And I imagine at that point you take a little bit of a breath of, we're going to be okay, we're on track, things are going to happen. At what point, Reed, are you diagnosed with cancer?
Oh, I had been diagnosed with cancer a year after we got married, prostate cancer.
So you'd already been through one bout with it.
Yeah, and that
actually 2.
And that was triggered the in vitro and all that.
That's why we had to have a child do in vitro.
Well, you know, I used to joke that my sperm had a better education than me because it was stored at UCLA, and I didn't go to a big school like that.
Yeah.
Actually, it's still there.
Yeah. 2 years after we got married, the doctor called us in and said, well, the bad news is your husband has prostate cancer. The good news is we found it early. Of course, I know you're trying to have a child. Well, now you're going to have to do in vitro. You're going to have to go freeze your sperm, da-da-da. I'm stuck at your husband has cancer.
Right.
But that was a huge challenge to get over, and then the cancer reappeared 8 years later.
5 years, and then it was radiation, and let's see, that was about the time that we started to work on adoption.
Okay. So by the time you adopted, you thought you were done with that.
With cancer.
You thought you were free and clear and
not really
hopeful. No, you were afraid that it would come back?
I was hopeful that it would be controlled, which is where it is. It's become, at least prostate cancer, and many cancers, thanks to science, has become chronic.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that take heart medicine, there are people that take prostate medicine, and there are people that take medicine for all sorts of
disorders now. But your health...
started to, you know, and the stress at work and the health, it just all didn't help. And I'm not saying that we were any worse off or better off than anybody else, because everybody, no matter what it looks like on the outside, is carrying something, some challenge.
But it's a full plate, let's be honest.
Full plate.
It was a lot.
It was a table.
Yeah.
Right.
The cancer came back.
Yeah,
it was a buffet.
It was a buffet.
It was a buffet. And with the cancer
and
coming back...
nothing on it did I want.
Right. And with the cancer coming back, honey, I want to point out that lymphedema, a side effect, pulmonary embolism, he almost
I'm not the kind
died.
of guy to trot all this stuff out, but sometimes the cures or the things they use are worse than
well,
the disease.
we know that.
So there was a blood clot adventure. There was a lymphedema adventure, swelling on my leg. And
you lost a little kidney along the way. You got one left.
Yeah, and then it's all blocked down there because of radiation treatments and scarring. So now, as the one kidney has a tube in it, and it goes out my back.
Right.
So all this stuff doesn't help running around with a 12-year-old, and the energy and the pills you take sometimes. Some days are great. Today's a great day.
And we appreciate that, that we caught you on a great day.
Besides that. And then all the other pressures, like starting a new business and keeping an old business going and tracking this and tracking that.
With all the health concerns, he could not continue to work at the intensity in television.
Of course.
And at that point, I'd gotten out of television because autism became my life, and I realized, being the very career-oriented person I am, if I were to continue working, it would have to be in the field of autism, which is when I got involved with fundraising and eventually became executive director of Act Today. So when you talk about have our lives changed, I don't think they could write a movie script that's any stranger about the twists and turns in our life and how different we are today.
Well, if you fade into black and, you know, like commercial breaks or, you know, a scene break and do a transition, the cliffhangers were amazing, and it seemed like every year there was a cliffhanger to be continued, or we'll get that when we get back.
Right. It's been a bumpy journey, and I'm wondering, in terms of as a couple, we know that, as you described, she became I love Moira Giammatteo says there's always a project manager when there's autism, and it's usually the woman.
I call it a project goddess.
There we go.
Leader.
There we go, and we appreciate that.
I mean,
but. So, you know, she became the project manager, and a lot of times dads say that there's a helpless feeling. And I'm wondering, did you feel helpless when autism came to live at your house, and then when you had health concerns that made it that much harder for you? As a man, how hard was that for you?
Oh, it's very difficult. First of all, is it helpless, or it's kind of like, well, you're really not needed, and what can you do? And most men find it very hard to adjust to, you know, raising a kid as it is. You tend to be more of a disciplinarian. You want things to happen when it happens. You want to go out and play sports. Hold the bat this way. And, you know, like in this culture with kids with special challenges, you are welcome to this world of everybody gets a medal and everybody makes a team. Well, you know, when I grew up neurotypical, not everybody makes a team. And how do you learn to cope with that in your life? And autism has been teaching me that. Well, I guess I didn't make the team to be the team dad that's going to coach, even though I help. But there was a shift somewhere in there where it was, and mainly because of Nancy and Doreen and ABA, that you could see things changing, but your expectations have to change or you're going to die. He's got to be the best he can be, and you've got to see what he is doing that is brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, okay, he likes painting, and which is fine. My mother was an artist. He likes music. He likes to sing. He likes to perform. The things that that I get most frustrated with are the behaviors, like, you know, the perseveration and the stemming that come in and out in the middle of, like, you're having a great time, and it seems to just stop everything that's kind of normal. Or normal.
Right, always in quotation marks, because who knows what normal is anymore. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what is the hardest thing? Is the perseverations and the stimming, is that the hardest thing for you?
Yeah, for me, the hardest thing is that, and when does it stop? And the other thing is time. This has been, well, since he's 4 or 5, he's now 12. How many more years has he peaked? I keep worrying that, you know, he's gone as far as he's gone, and then there's that timeline. I mean, I have a timeline. I don't know what it is yet, but it certainly doesn't help when you know, think about cancer and you go in and, you know, have your kidney checked every 2 months, and you say, okay.
You're feeling tick-tock.
Yeah.
I will tell you, though, that our experts on the show always tell us, because we all ask this question, people write in and ask this question, how do we know when the child is as far as they're going to get? And they tell us all, you're never done. You're always making progress.
I agree.
Well,
the rate may change. Yeah. The rate may change of how much you learn and how quickly you learn, but there's always more progress to be had.
Well, I'm not a patient person.
I disagree. You just may not be happy about it.
What I think Reed has learned through this journey, if I may say from what I've observed, I believe in this life, you know, in my philosophical looking at it, we are given things to work on the things we need to work on. I think our children are often put there for the very purpose of whatever our buttons are, be it patience, anger, living in the now, all of those things. They are great guides for that. They are great guides for that. And if we can overcome our own egos and our own wanting our children to be what we want them to be and learn from them, that is just a great gift in this life. And I have seen you grow in patience, leaps and bounds since the beginning of this. You have really conquered a lot of those.
I don't want to say that parents with typical kids, you know, they want them to be a doctor. The kid's going to be what they want to be anyway. It's the interaction. It's the time together. What is that time?
Yeah.
And fathers, I think, more than mothers, have a tough time with that. And I'm speaking to the dads out there. It's not easy. Yeah. I remember going through adoption, and we had the failed adoption process, and then the in vitro, and it was kind of a crossroads, life with a child or not a child. And I was at work. I remember making a list, and do we want to go forward? And life with a child, life without a child. And looked at the columns, and I told Nancy, life with a child. But I can say directly to you, and I've said it to her, that, wow, did I pick the wrong side of the list? Because what's our life with a child? We had a great life, you know, without a child, wanting a child, but wanting and then getting and then doing, or, you know, that's three things.
But it was on a certain level, wasn't it?
Yeah. On a certain level, it's better.
Yeah.
Because it's never about you anymore when you have a child.
Right. Right.
But in his early years, we used to take him everywhere. He was flying on airplanes when he was 6 months. He learned to walk in Block Island. This is the first time he took his steps, right along with the geese that were in this gaggle of geese which were running around with him. And actually my brother, I think, was holding him by the hand, and Wyatt had this grin a mile wide.
I always say that first year was so blissful. We never realized that just around the corner was this sort of like this bomb about to go off. And cancer was like that too for us, and autism was like that. But I have to say that our marriage, in its own odd way, our family is so much stronger, so much stronger. Our faith, it did turn us very much towards being very involved in our church, and I've started a ministry at our church for special needs families, and you're with me every step of the way. This, you know, I'm the one who really felt a calling, I think, for this field, but without Reed's support, I couldn't do my work at ACT Today. I couldn't do my work at the church, and I think you know, in terms of our spiritual development, it's been huge. It's been huge. I would not return to being that person I was 13 years ago for anything in the world. Yes, it's a challenge every day, but I would not return to that blissful kind of not knowing about the deeper experiences of what it can mean to be human and to suffer and to come out on the other side.
Well, Reed, you mentioned, you know, if you could talk to the dads. With all this experience that you have gained now, what do you wish somebody had told you? What do you wish you could go back and tell yourself to have made the process? Is there something that you can share with the dads to help them shed a little light?
Well, first of all, you have to decide to hang in there. And it's not about your wife. It's not about the child, and it's not a reason to leave. It's a reason to hunker down and, you know, be stronger. In that sense, I guess, if you tick off what makes a good man, that's a good man. It's not the money, it's not the job. But we tend to focus on, okay, I don't make as much money as I did, and you know, am I pulling my weight? Am I being the leader? Well, it seems like it becomes a team rather than, you know, okay, I go to work, you take care of the kid. So yeah, you've got to decide to stay, and that's hard. You know, the times that go through your head and say, I don't need this. I didn't want this.
And that's so honest.
It
you know,
is honest.
I think that makes people, you know, go, because I think we all felt that on some day, and it had to make the decision.
Yeah, this certainly isn't happily ever after.
Right.
It is a whole new meaning of happily ever after. It's enlightened ever after.
Yeah.
I mean, another word for a nervous breakdown is spiritual awakening.
There we go.
You know, and that, I think, in our case has been true, right, honey?
Sure.
I got somebody who wrote in a long list of questions for you.
Okay,
right
great.
now?
Ready? Yes.
What?
Yes.
They have my hair?
They want to know how long did you work at Fox?
Oh, you have a job for me?
14 years, right?
14 years.
Yeah. Okay. They say, I know that they say more women in the helping organization. How do you feel coming into an IEP meeting knowing that you're the only man?
An IEP meeting knowing I'm the only man.
Because it's mostly female teachers, a lot of female principals now, and a lot of times it's the mom that's leading it.
Yes, and it's my concern, and it's a great question, that I want Wyatt to have more male influence. Like after school with a teacher, that's a guy. We've had
therapist, yeah.
A therapist. And I pick up when I can, but I've been unable to go run around a lot of times. I mean, when I want to go run around with him or play catch, simply because, especially when I was going through chemotherapy. But yeah, I wish there were more men that would go in this field, but I can understand, and I liken it to, it just came to me why there were more male horseback riders and hunter jumpers, because they don't have the patience to be with a horse. If the horse doesn't do what they want to kick it instead of just keep urging it.
And this is actually a gentleman who is studying to be a therapist who wrote this in, all these questions for you. He wants to know, how long did it take you to know that you had a child with autism? How long did it take?
To accept it?
Well, no, for you, I think it's to know that you had a child with autism, because I know at first you saw some symptoms, and he was banging, you know, walls and windows and things, and then you had the PDDS. How long did it take from beginning of seeing signs to knowing knowing that he had autism?
About 2 years.
2 years we saw the signs, but we didn't get the diagnosis. And I don't mean to correct you, but yeah.
Of course you do.
But we got the diagnosis of PDD-NOS, which was not the correct diagnosis. This is why it had all 3 areas in the DSM-4. We got the correct diagnosis from the California regional system when he was 4. Okay. To get the correct treatment, he was 5.
Okay. They go on to ask, how do you feel about living in the fishbowl and having a lot of people come in and out of your life, all the therapists going in and out? What's that like for you as a man?
I can't wait for them to show up. Because
Great answer.
It helps me.
Yeah.
And I hopefully learn from them.
So you don't mind having, sometimes virtual strangers coming in the house and going out. It took me a long time to get used to that.
Well, we've had a life of people coming in and going out of.
And tell them what you think about, you have some that you're so fond of. You call Celeste your daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he goes out with the therapist, tell him about going to Starbucks, and everybody thinks the therapist is his daughter, and Wyatt's his grandson, right?
My grandson. And I don't change that.
Right.
And I just don't allow Wyatt to call him Mom. But,
right. But you don't dispel the notion.
It forms a bond. Okay. And if it doesn't form a bond, it's not working for Wyatt either, I don't think. It's a special thing that happens.
It's a great way of looking at it. Now, I don't know that I understand what this last thing that he wrote. He said, P.S. It or IT with Ross and 1-5 is my favorite show to watch, and they are awesome, awesome, and funny. I don't know if that's something on Fox or something that you worked on. IT with Ross and 1-5. I don't know, but they love that show.
Fox.
You were at Fox Sports.
Yeah, Fox Sports. What? Don't tell me who he is. What state are you in? Because Fox Sports has regions.
I know that he's in Wisconsin because he put his name.
Okay.
That would be Fox FSN North. It was the cable station.
Okay. All right.
And is he planning to be a therapist?
Yes.
How wonderful. Yeah. Because let me tell you that we have loved our male therapist, and as Reed said, you think there's a huge need for more male therapists.
I do think there is, and I think there's a need for fathers to feel comfortable to cry and let it out.
Yeah.
You did that just the other day with our therapy team.
Oh, yeah. That was embarrassing. I did it.
I think that's wonderful. And we should say, and we will probably ask Reed to come back on the show. We're almost out of time here. But you had this idea that it took us a long time to get to fruition, and it's almost done now, to get together a group of dads to sit down and have a meal and give them free rein to talk. And you took part in this. We're calling it Facing Fatherhood. And it was really an amazing day. And I can't wait until in the coming months we're going to debut this. But Reed took part in it. 5 autism dads sitting and talking. It was an amazing day.
I've heard that the rough cut of it is...
It's powerful. My husband sat and watched it.
Yeah, we're getting gems in it.
He said it would... My husband didn't take take part in it, but he watched it the other day, and he said, this is life-changing.
Well, I would hope so. The thing is that men don't share.
Yeah.
For example, I'd see a friend of mine and, I'd say, well, they're doing this, and Nancy will ask about 10 other questions. And I said, I didn't ask anything about that. Anyway.
But we're out of time, but I want to take a moment.
Do we get to turn the tables and get Jim here soon?
Yes, we'll get Jim here soon, and then you can sit and ask him questions.
Okay, great.
Well, you guys are delightful hosts, and I felt like I was really... You guys are pros at this.
We love you, and that's part of it.
And we love working with each other. And I just want to thank you, honey, for coming in and being so honest.
Remarkable.
And I can say, and I know we're out of town here, but my husband has grown so much in this process. And ladies, be patient with your husbands.
Yeah.
Women, be kind to your husbands. Know that this is a tough thing for them, and they will come along. Maybe not your pace, but they will come along. Just be patient.
Or as you expect them.
A great way to end. So we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye.
And give yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.